Hello and welcome to this CCNA video tutorial. In this tutorial we'll be having an introduction to the IP address classes and what the different types of classes are and what they contain. Okay, so the first class we will look at is a class A. This is the largest of the IP address classes. To identify a class A in an IP address, you have to look at the first digit. The same with any class. It's always looking at the first digit of an IP address. So if I was to give you an IP address of, say, 10.1.1.1, it's the first number that you use to identify an IP address or an IP address class. So class A has a range from 1 to 127. So if you have a look at the address, like I say at the beginning, very first section, if it starts with a 1 to 127, it stands as a class A. Class A subnet mask by default is 255.0.0.0. Remember, that's just a default setting. It will change obviously later on. We'll look at some videos about classless subnetting and so on and so forth. But for now, the default class A is 255.0.0.0. The private range from a class A is 10.0.0.0 up to 10.255.255.255. And that's a private IP address range, so it's used in your own network. Okay, a class B, again looking at the very first section of the IP address, if it has a number between 128 and 191, it's identified as a class B. The default subnet mask will be 255.255.0.0, and this time the private range is 172.16.0.0 up to 172.31.255.255. So those are your private IP address ranges, again ones you can use on your inside network. And finally, class C, again the first octet is from 192 all the way up to 223. The default subnet mask for this is 255.255.255.0, and the private address range is 192.168.0.0 all the way up to 192.168.255.255. So what we've got is the default subnet masks. Like I say, these 255s identify the network portion, the zeros identify the host portions. The private address ranges there are used on your internal networks and easily identifiable. You'll be questioned on these during your CCNA, so it's worth learning these few classes here. There is a class D and class E. We'll look at those in a later tutorial. But this is just an introduction to the regular IP address ranges that you'll be using throughout your CCNA studies. Hope this has been useful. Thank you for watching.